Good afternoon and welcome to today's City Council Policy Session for Tuesday, January 26th. We will start with council information and follow-up request. Would you like to go first, Councilwoman Williams?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I had the privilege of attending the Child Help Drive the Dream event last Saturday night. Child Help is one of our partners that provides services to abused children. And this Wednesday at the Barrett-Jackson auction, they are auctioning off a custom Jeep, and the entire amount bid for the Jeep will go to Child Help. So if you got lots of money in your pocket, call in a bid. I want to remind everybody we have a breakfast on Friday at the Radisson Hotel at 7:30 a.m. Duet Parents and Health and Aging will be our guest speakers. I want to thank Doris Berg from Solid Waste. She has a lot of patience and a lot of talent, and she was very good in showing me how a garbage truck is operated this week. And I also want to thank Catherine Sorensen and her crew who took me on a tour of Tres Rios, which is so impressive. I can't wait for more people to get down there and see it. And I was absolutely amazed. A coyote ran in front of us as we're driving up to the project, and we get there, and there's a whole flock of pelicans who have decided Phoenix, Arizona is where they want to reside. It's quite amazing. And 99 is at the Metro Center from January 29th to February 21st. And it is, you'll see a huge, and I mean big tent on the Ring Road or near Sherrill at Metro Center. And this is a program designed to help teenagers learn the dangers, how to avoid drugs, alcohol, what can happen to you when you're texting and driving. It's all geared towards that probably 14 to 20 age group. It is open on Fridays, Saturdays, and I encourage parents to have their kids come out because they have real life actors that play different roles that actually bring it home what the message is, and it has been very effective in other cities, and I hope it is here. So I also want to mention we have a new AMLA CEO that is starting 1st of February, Warren Tenney. Warren has been the Southern Arizona water use community. It's very similar to the AMWA agency, and so it brings lots of experience. He was a board member on the CAP, so he's very knowledgeable about water, and I want to welcome him and let everyone know that he's going to do a great job in the future. That's all I have. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Other members of the council? Councilman Gallego, please.
Thank you very much. First, I wanted to recognize the passing of Andrew Coulter, who was a longtime leader in Phoenix and the District 8 community, and known to many as Mr. C. The gymnasium at Harmon Park was dedicated to Mr. Coulter in 2014 due to the tremendous impact that he had on many individuals while playing, coaching, and mentoring basketball players since 1948. What a legacy. And his son Stephen has carried on the tradition by serving as a recreation leader with our Parks Department. So it's important to acknowledge the tradition of community service that keeps our city strong. Speaking of a strong city, I want to congratulate everyone who worked on the CFB Championship Games. Special thanks to our downtown staff, public safety, public works. And we want to also thank the Warehouse District, which had a much larger footprint than during the Super Bowl game and hosted ESPN, Mike and Mike, who did a ringing endorsement of our Warehouse District as a great sports venue along with our downtown. And thank you to Channel 11 for helping me document it. Tomorrow, I want to invite everyone to join us for the Pueblo Grande Museum art dedication, beautiful new gateway to one of our city's treasures. I also want to congratulate everyone recognized through the Living the Dream Awards Breakfast and everyone who helped us mark Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday and the city's day of service. At the awards breakfast, they Many members of the District 8 family, past and present, were recognized. Jacqueline Adams, Dr. Jerome Garrison Sr., Dr. George Brooks, Bishop Thomas, our own Marshall Franklin, Ryan Johnson, Dwayne Wooten, who won the Calvin Good Lifetime Achievement Award. So great news for our city and those residents who were recognized for their service to our city. I was also wanted to make sure folks watching at home were aware of a new program at the City of Phoenix that I think is a win-win for our court system and our residents. The Compliance Assistance Program will set up a structure for those who have been fined by the city to pay back their debts in small portions without crippling ramifications such as suspension of driver's licenses and other ramifications that make paying the fines nearly impossible for the working poor. This is a step in the right direction for the city and for those looking to repay their debts. Also wanted to invite folks to join us on Saturday, February 6th. We'll be at the Levine Community Parade along with our District 7 colleagues on Dobbins Road between 43rd and 51st Avenue, and it should be a great Saturday morning. Also want to welcome Cognosante to District 8. They've already hired more than 450 individuals. They are a health IT company, among others helping with different government systems, Affordable Care Act, and veterans. So a great employer and continuing our area of excellence in both health and IT. The Phoenix Chamber of Commerce was an important partner and continues to be. So this was another success for our Phoenix Forward initiative. And we also welcomed Honda Jets to District 8. They will be the regional dealer, so people will be buying airplanes out of Texas, California, and other communities, and that'll be paying dividends for Phoenix taxpayers. Lots of good news. As always, if anyone has questions, please contact our office at 602-262-7493. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Other members of the council, Councilman Nowakowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to let everyone know that this Friday, our office is going to be hosting a village membership thank you luncheon. We're going to invite all of the different village commissioners to come down and the ones that are retiring also. We're going to give them a special plaque, and we just really want to thank all those commissioners that sit on our villages, especially in District 7, for all their time that they volunteer to our community to make our neighborhoods nice. So thank you, and if you're available and you're a commissioner for District 7, come on down this Friday. We'll have a great lunch, and we'll recognize those individuals that are moving on from commissioners to other boards and commissions that we have in the city of Phoenix. And I also want to emphasize the parade. If you've never been out to the Levine Community Parade, it's a great event. It's a family event. It starts right there on 43rd Avenue in Dobbins, and people just start lining up all the way to 51st Avenue. You'll see all kinds, from horses to individuals, floats, and it's a great event for the community and for the families. Also, mark your calendars for that following Sunday, February 21st, where we're going to have the famous Levine Barbecue. If you want the best barbecue in the state of Arizona, it's right there in Levine. That's on that Sunday, February 21st, right at Corona Ranch. If you've never been out to Corona Ranch, it's right off about 29th Avenue and Baseline. It's a wonderful place. It's a rodeo grounds, and you'll see all types of people, and you'll have all kinds of fun. And if you have visitors from back east, it's a great time to visit the Southwest and see how the Cowboys do it out in the Corona Ranch area. I also like to thank all the staff members and all the volunteers that worked out there on Martin Luther King holiday. It was a day on for a lot of people that they were cleaning up what Broadway Road. Now we changed it to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Thank you to Kate Gallegos and all the individuals that helped to name that street after this great American hero, Martin Luther King. And we really appreciate all those people that did a fantastic job in cleaning up the streets on that day. Also, lastly, I'd like to welcome two new businesses into our district. The department, which is right off of Washington right here on 2nd Street, is an old department store that now it's converted into a co-op workplace for entrepreneurs. So it was a great grand opening that they had, and all kinds of businesses from one person to 5 individuals working together. It's a space where people come together, and depending on how big of a space you need, you can actually rent out that spot. So, District 7 is happening, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. And then the other cool place to be hanging out is right off of 2nd Street and just south of Roosevelt. We have a new arcade, the Cobra Arcade. It's an old school arcade, so if you want to do Pac-Man and all those fun games, I think you remember those games, Mayor, when you were in high school. You can come right downtown Phoenix now, and we have those arcades. We have 40 different arcades with themes back of the 80s. So come on down, enjoy yourself, and have some fun.
Thank you very much, Councilman. I challenge you to Pong.
Oh, boop, boop, boop.
That's pretty good. All right, other members of the council that want to give comments or questions now? Councilwoman Pastor, please.
So I want to wish you a Happy New Year. I know it's late in the month, but we haven't had a policy. So it is a new year, and it's a great new year. So hope everybody had a wonderful season. I want to congratulate the inaugural graduating class of Europe, Arizona. I happened to be invited to their first graduating class, and so Europe is doing some wonderful things within our community, and it's a partnership with the Maricopa Community Colleges and the city. So wanted to do a shout out. I also wanted to thank all the 100 volunteers who went out to help clean Thomas Square community over the holiday. That is a community that is in desperate need of cleanup, and we were able to assist with many others in providing a cleanup and a constant cleanup around that area. It's on 43rd Avenue and Thomas, those that know that area. And so we are really pushing, organizing block watches within there and organizing all the owners and wanting to make sure that that area is safe. So thank you. And this past Saturday, along with the mayor, I was at the College Depot Career Online High School first graduating class. It was 9 students that graduated that decided to go back to school and get their high school diploma. These would, they fall in the category, or could fall in the category of opportunity for youth, but they decided to take the initiative and were persistent enough and get their high school diploma. So I'm really proud of them. And what's wonderful about it is that they're going on to college. And that's the great thing, is that they've reached this piece of their dream, and now they're going on to different community colleges. So I'm so happy to hear that. And then, as you know, as I have a diverse background in the sense of different areas, youth and education obviously is a passion of mine. And so I'm embarking on several new projects this year, and I'm very proud of the fact that I will be bringing youth together to discuss what is it that they need in their community and what is it that they would like to see in their community. So I'm hosting many focus groups throughout February, and then once we culminate all the information, I will be, along with Councilwoman Gallego, hosting a youth engagement summit to distribute the findings, but also to have develop engagement within our community. And that date hasn't necessarily been solidified, but it will be in March. And so I'm proud of all the work that we are doing, and now we're going to demonstrate where we also need additional help from our community in order to push forward. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to just mention and highlight a show that we have called Yes PHX. It's something that I think a lot of people are picking up on. If you check out yesphx.com, there's a website. If you're on social media, hashtag YesPHX has probably 12,000 followers, many of which are entrepreneurs in tech and innovation, educators, nonprofits, but certainly all that are committed to driving the Phoenix economy forward. And so what we do, it's myself and a good friend, Jonathan Cottrell. Jonathan and I co-host this show. And in fact, it was mentioned that the department just had their ribbon cutting last week. That is a segment that you'll see right now on Phoenix 11 and You might see it circulated online or on social media. But it's a really good opportunity to highlight many of the superstars that we have that are helping to drive the Phoenix economy forward. We are highlighting our higher education institutions. We are also highlighting our co-working spaces and incubators. Recently we had GPEC and Chris Camacho highlighted, and the list goes on and on. Starting next week, we will be highlighting, this is going to be a 4-part series on Dr. Chad Guestin and the Phoenix Union High School District. Our economy, the Phoenix economy, and driving our economy forward is dependent on our ability to attract, retain, and develop talent. And many times when we say that, many times we're talking about one of our great higher education institutions, and we have several of them here, but let's not forget, we have one of the largest high school districts in the country, certainly the largest in the state, right here in Phoenix, the most diverse school district in the entire state. There's 16 high schools, 27,000 students, 3,000 employees, and I would say the most innovative high school district in the country in the Phoenix Union High School District, incredibly diverse. Our students, our children, are quickly evolving into what we're going to see is the greatest workforce, the most resilient workforce in the country. Many of these students are bilingual, bicultural, again, resilient, hardworking, honest kids, and most of them are products of Phoenix, something that we should all be proud of. So a 4-part series, some of the places that we'll be touching on is the Bioscience High School, as well as the new Coding High School, and so much more. I would be remiss if I did not thank one of my colleagues whose leadership is helping to move the Phoenix Union High School District in such a positive direction, and that is our very own Laura Pastor, who is also a governing board member, a school board member for the Phoenix Union High School District. So congratulations, and you and your colleagues on these
All my colleagues
are doing such a great
yes.
job. Every teacher, and of course, I think Chad Guestin is doing an amazing job as the interim superintendent as well. So check it out. You can look at, see some of the past segments on phoenix.gov/District 5, or you could just Google it at this point, Yes PHX. And if you have any ideas, please send them our way, and we'll be sure to highlight you, your business, or someone that you want us to speak with. We'll be sure to get them on the show as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Any other members of the council have any announcements I'd like to get across? Oh, Councilman Gates, are you you're online? You're on the phone? All right, I think Councilman Gates is maybe away from his phone right now, but otherwise he'll be appearing. If he wants to give comments, he'll have a chance to do so later. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next slide.
Mayor, real quick, I
please,
forgot to wish Councilmember Sal DeCiccio a happy birthday. I think he's at a birthday party right now, and he's not here, I guess. So happy birthday, Sal.
We're not singing, are we? Oh, we're good. Okay, good. All right. Happy birthday, Councilman DeCiccio. All right. No singing. Thank goodness. All right.
Do las mañanitas.
We'll toss the
Michael
cake.
can lead it.
We'll toss the cake in his face.
All right. Next, do we have a consent agenda? How about a call for executive session?
Mayor, in accordance with a properly posted notice and agenda, I move that the City Council, pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes, Section 38-431.02.a, meet in executive session on Tuesday, February 9th, 2016 at 1 p.m. in the East Conference Room, 12th floor of the Phoenix City Hall, 200 West Washington Street, Phoenix, Arizona.
Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Mr. City Manager, do you have any reports or budget updates?
Mayor, I do not at this time. We will have our 5-year forecast a month from today at the February 26th meeting.
All right, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item number 2. Item number 2 is a report and possible action on the Transportation 2050 Light Rail expansion plans. So, Mr. City Manager, I'll have you introduce the item and the staff that's going to present, and then we'll see if there is any action by the City Council. And I know there are a few cards on item number 2 as well.
Thank you, Mayor. We as staff are very proud to be implementing the direction of the City Council and Phoenix voters who passed the Transportation 2050 plan in August. It represents a long-term community building effort in the area of streets, buses and dial-a-ride, and light rail, all for the economic advancement of Phoenix. And the program officially began with collections starting on January 1st, but staff have been working diligently with our Citizens Transportation Commission. We start today with 3 items related specifically to the light rail portion of the Transportation 2050 plan. There is much more, but today's emphasis will be on the light rail actions that have been taken so far. Deputy City Manager Mario Paniagua is leading our staff group, along with Public Transit Director Maria Hyatt and our Light Rail Administrator Albert Santana. So I'll ask Mr. Paniagua to lead us into these 3 separate action items.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good afternoon. Very pleased to be here to bring forward these action items to the City Council today that are here because of your leadership, the leadership of the Mayor and Council, to put forward a plan to voters which was adopted last August. And the items today are about initiating putting that plan into action. And so we're, as Mr. Zerker mentioned, we're going to be talking to you about expanding light rail into important corridors in the city of Phoenix and the steps that we need to take to move that forward, as well as expansion of our light rail stations. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Maria Hyatt, our Public Transit Director, to get into the specifics.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We're very excited to talk about building our future, which is really what we call Transportation 2050, or as was on the ballot, Proposition 104. The Regional Transportation Plan was the basis for what we just discussed with the community. The projects and the dates that are included on this Regional Transportation Plan were based on the funding source, our previous transit funding source, which is Transit 2000. We use this map as the starting point in really talking to the community about what their needs were in the extension of Transit 2000, and wanted to make sure that they had an opportunity to gather their input, tell us what they were looking for during this process. And what we heard consistently from community members, and we received those comments online, through community meetings, neighborhood associations, village planning commission meetings, attending different events, even in just having a table out and talking to people as they came by. And so that helped us gather this information, which was then used for the Citizen Commission on the Future of Phoenix Transportation. One very common theme we heard from the community was, we want more and we want it as soon as possible. So based on that and the passage of Proposition 104 of Transportation 2050, we're coming back to you with some recommendations after an analysis of which ones of our projects could move forward and be expedited. The first project I'll be talking about today is the Northwest Extension. So for those of you who know, we originally had a 2012 opening date for Northwest Extension, but the economy had a severe impact on this extension. But fortunately, we were able to bring this project back online, and in fact, we're going to be opening it up early. And based on the momentum from the community that we're hearing, as well as seeing with the businesses and the residences and the schools, there is quite a bit of momentum to keep this project going forward in Phase 2. So Phase 2 of the Northwest Extension goes from 19th Avenue and Dunlap, and you'll see the picture, which is our station over at 19th Avenue and Dunlap with the yellow baskets, which if you haven't been over there are very cool, and I highly recommend that you come by and see and stare up and look at them and see what they are. But based on this project, the project readiness is there, as well as the community support. Once you turn the corner at 19th Avenue and Dunlap, you go past 3 private universities, as well as the destination of Metro Center Mall. So based on the project readiness and the community support, we are recommending that this project move up from 2026 to a 2023 opening date. Our next project that we're talking about is South Central Extension. And with the South Central Extension, we've seen quite a bit of federal support on this project. We were fortunate to receive a Tiger grant from the federal government, which helped us start the early work on this project, even though this project was not scheduled to open until 2034. So with this federal support, as well as very strong community support, we are recommending that this project make a very big leap forward from 2034 opening date to a 2023 opening date. Our Capital I-10 West is our third project we'll be talking about. So with the Capital I-10 West corridor, there really are two distinct parts to this project. There's this capital area, and then there's the freeway portion. We've had quite a few talks with the Federal Transit Administration about this corridor because we are in environmental phase of this project. And what we've heard from the FTA is that projects like this is an 11-mile corridor, is considered a mega project. And mega projects is anything over $1 billion. And what they're telling us is that mega projects have a very limited funding availability. So two factors here that we're looking at with this. The potential, there's a very strong potential to make that connection to all of the jobs that exist between downtown Phoenix and the capital area. Our recommendation to you is to phase this project and bring and maintain phase one, which is bringing it from downtown Phoenix to the capital, and maintain the 2023 opening date for that phase. But for phase two, which is going into the freeway corridor and ending at 79th Avenue, we're recommending extending that date to 2030. And one of the reasons for that, in addition to it being a mega project, is the continued coordination with the West Valley cities. There's strong conversation about what Glendale, Buckeye, Avondale, what those cities are really looking for, and we believe there is significant potential in partnering with those other cities on an extension that could make this 11-mile corridor even better. So our West Phoenix and Central Glendale extension, we're not recommending a change to this date. Currently, this is 2026, and we are recommending that it maintain at 2026. So currently, we will be coming back to council with a finalized alignment and mode in the springtime on this project. This is a partnership with the City of Glendale, and we are still working out the alignment as well as what works best for the community on this project. And then the Northeast Phoenix corridor is another extension that today we are not recommending a change in the date. However, what we are going to be doing is starting the assessment of this project this summer. And that will take anywhere from 18 to 24 months to complete. And after that initial assessment is done, we will be ready to come back to the council with assessing the schedule. So our recommendation today is to request that the council approve incorporating Transportation 2050 high-capacity transit schedule into the regional transit plan. This item has been before both the Citizens Transportation Commission as well as the Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee and received their approvals, or their recommendation to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Hyatt. So that recommendation would be 2A and B, or just 2A, or I'm a little confused, I apologize.
Mayor, it is 2A.
2A, so we're just talking about 2A now. So I'll turn to members of the council. Is there a motion on 2A, and then I have a series of cards on all of item 2, and I'll let the individual speakers decide whether they want to speak 2A or one of the other items.
Mayor, I would move approval of staff's recommendation, item A.
So there's a motion on to support staff recommendation as relates to 2A. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Okay, so now I'll turn to the cards so that the public can now know that the testimony should be on that motion in support of 2A. Ms. Dee Dee Barker, did you want to testify on this item, 2A? Or you want to wait to South Central or 50th Street or 16th Street potential stations?
Okay, Mayor and Council, Diane Barker, District 7. If I am interested in the whole regional plan, of which B and C are a part of it. And so, you know, I would like to make my comments, and if you notice on my card, on my card, thank you. I am speaking as a statement. I have attended the Citizens Transportation Commission, and I did make an objection that I was not able to speak on a consent item, and which is, you know, you're going to be putting South Central on the 50th Street. And I was told that the open meetings law from the state makes it just so that you can come and observe, and it's up to discretion of the chair. And I says, well, federal highway, and that's where the mass transit fund comes, and the city of Phoenix is, for years, the federal grant recipient, very high distinction for obtaining federal transit money. So it all trickles down to, it's our money, the public, we need to be heard. I think most of you want us to be heard because there's some people like us that rely on mass transit, and we want a better system. We're not an A person. Where I'm going with this is the federal highway rule for transit planning, and MAG has come through this because the citizens got the federal government several years ago to get to MAG, and MAG absolutely lets us speak on consent and also call to the public. 23 CFR, Code of Federal Regulations 450 states that not only would be citizens part of the planning, we're to be heard and considered. It goes way beyond the open meetings law. And if you go to the AG has got more and more that on consent we do. City of Phoenix, come on, get with the public and let us be heard.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Barker. Next speaker will be Vashti Suplee? B, okay, I'll hold off on B. How about Victor Vidalis? You want to wait for B? B is specifically on South Central, although A incorporates some of South Central, so there's a little bit of overlap. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Mayor. Good to see you, Council, City Managers. My name is Victor Vidalis. I'm actually a small business owner. I own a business at 6427 South Central Avenue, where the light rail will go right in front of my business. I'm here to support and thank Kate Gallegos and the mayor for pushing the Prop 104 ballot measure forward and giving us the opportunity to have you guys to make this decision today. South Phoenix has been waiting for many, many years to have this extension. It was part of our plans way back with the Rio Salado Beyond the Banks plan, and we just are in full support of what you're doing with this, and hope that the council will approve this reprioritization of moving this up to 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor, for your testimony and your leadership in our community. Mr. Tommy Espinoza, do you provide testimony on 2A?
Mayor, Council, Ed, Melton. We're here to support the recommendation of the Transportation Committee from the city. I think it really does zero in on, obviously, the major issues that our community faces as it relates to transportation. On a very specific item, obviously South Phoenix, as South Phoenix resident and in Kate's district, I think it really will add to the economic development of South Phoenix. And I won't bore you with Plaza de las Culturas, but obviously it has a major impact on a major project south of the river. And I think this would really add to the economic development of South Phoenix. So as a resident of South Phoenix and actively involved in the development of Plaza de las Culturas, we would be very supportive of this action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Espinoza, for your testimony and your leadership on so many issues in our community. Armando Ruiz, you want to provide testimony on 2B? I'm sorry. I'll hold off. I apologize. How about Rosie Lopez? Did you want to wait till 2B, which is South Central Pacific? Okay. Walt Gray?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm concerned about the pushing back of I-10 to 79th Avenue to 2030. I think many of us on the west side are. I mentioned this to the Village Planning Committee. They're concerned about, the initial reaction was a negative one. They're going to ask Valley Metro to speak to them and explain. I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Santana yesterday, and he explained some things to me that about what comes along with the completion of the capital section. And so, you know, we're not fighting mad yet, but we're concerned. We realize that this is not in concrete, that this is an annual thing that must be brought before the council depending on the various things that happen over the year. So we ask you to keep in mind that we've been on, I-10 West has been on the program since 2000, the original vote. You know, it's 2016, and we're still talking to the West Valley cities. So I think that can be expedited and maybe help our project, which, you know, as the Maria said, that they're everybody wants everything now, and we're that way too. And we know that the other projects also are worthwhile projects, but we ask you to keep in mind I-10 West. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray. How about Phil Pangrazio? C. Oh, C. You want to hold off on C? Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that. And then I have one more speaker wishing to speak, but only if necessary. Somebody named Rick Neymark? It's up to you whether it's it is necessary. He's coming down. All right.
How many minutes? 2? 1?
He can't hold back.
Mayor, members of the council, my name is Rick Neymark, and I just came down to tell you how much I miss you, and to let you know that my hair is beginning to grow back. It is possible. I'm here today as a volunteer member of the Citizens Transportation Commission. I want to thank you for appointing me to the commission, and we've had a couple of really good meetings filled with a lot of information. I want to thank the staff because they've done a really good job of presenting with us with a whole bunch of information so that we could make these recommendations to you. You know, during the process leading up to this and also during the campaign for Proposition 104, one of the things we heard from people is we want things to move along and move fast. And your actions today on all three of these items are a way to really get things moving in the quickest way possible because they allow us to sort of reprioritize things to get better leverage of where, you know, where the federal government is headed with their money. So the ability to get the federal money will allow us to deliver miles sooner. And these, all three of these recommendations that are before you today are just really well thought out and are positioning us to deliver for the community as quickly as possible. And I really look forward to the streets recommendations as well when they come, because there's some really good stuff happening there in terms of paving streets as well. So thank you, and I hope you miss me as much as I miss you.
Thank you, Rick. I think most of us miss you.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. Good to see you, and thank you for your consistent leadership on this project and so many others. You did step on our own headline a little bit in that the streets element of it, at least the early street improvements, the major repairs of our promise, we're going to be voting on next week before the City Council. Amina Kruk does not wish to speak, but is in favor of the proposals. Petra Falcone is also here. Thank you for being here. Did not wish to speak, also in favor of the proposals.
Can we
now,
vote on whether we miss Rick?
that will not is not an agendized item today, but whether we miss Mr. Neymark. I have a quick question, and I'll probably reserve more substantive comments until we get to all three, because my comments will involve all three. But for South Phoenix, 2023 opening, is that based upon a start date of construction of when?
Mayor, members of the council, the dates that are referenced today are operating service dates, so those would be operation dates. So with a 2023 date, we're actually looking for specific for South Central, it would be right around summer of 2023, with construction commencing the later part of 2019 or early 2020.
Okay, and I know, you know, we're voting to revise the plan. I'm hoping that that is on the outer end of what happens. Obviously, our plan is to get this in the presidential budget next year, which would allow for, with all the engineering work that's been done because of the Tiger grants, et cetera, since I think where this is an accelerated project. Could that be earlier?
Mayor, members of the council, the schedule that we've put forth, we feel is about as aggressive as a schedule we can do as a part of the federal process. And when we get into 2B, we'll get into a little more specifics as to the schedule and how it relates with the president's budget and how we came to the 2023 date.
Okay, I'm looking forward to hearing that, and then maybe push you a little bit on. I know it's some of it's out of your control, but the things that are in our control, if we get in the president budget next year, the ability to potentially revise that in a more speedy way, that we can get that project started and open earlier than 2023. Okay. So any other comments or questions on 2A? Councilman Nowakowski?
Yes, Mayor, I have a question on the capital I-10 West Phase 2, moving it back to 2030. This was something that back in Transit 2000 that people really pushed. We talked about economic development in the west side, in the Maryville area. We talked about the need of light rail going down the I-10. We talked about the needs of individuals that work at our state, our federal, our county, and our city offices that can actually use, and it's basically a reliever off that I-10. If you drive down the I-10 now in the morning, it's a parking lot. And for just that reason alone, I mean, have we done a traffic count of vehicles from 79th Avenue to the I-17 recently? And do we know what the need is? Because I can tell you that traveling the I-10, it takes you a good hour or so just to get in the morning times, right?
Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, there has been a lot of work along that corridor. In fact, I think we got started looking at that 11 miles back in 2006. And to answer some of your questions, as far as the traffic counts, it is a heavily used corridor for commuters coming into the downtown area from the West Valley, anywhere between 250,000. So we know that that's a highly used area. The other thing that I want to make sure, and this was a part of the conversation I actually had with Mr. Gray, who was kind enough to come down today, was that light rail is one component of multiple things that we are planning to do as a part of Transportation 2050. In fact, our highest used bus route, not just in Phoenix, in the entire region, is along Thomas Road. And as such, we are going to be recommending in the future to the council that the Thomas Road bus rapid transit system, the first one to be would be Thomas, which would connect between 79th Avenue and 44th Street, because we know that we need to build that transportation options for the Maryville core. In addition to that, one item that we're hoping to do before the actual light rail project along the I-10 is to build a connection ramp between I-10 and I-17, which would also help to enhance our existing rapid service that people use on a daily basis now. And all of that would then lead into the conversation about the future light rail. We do know that it's important to have the conversation with the West Valley cities as well, as they're gearing up to look at the regional concept of the future of light rail serving the West Valley. So that's why we're recommending it at this point, but do know that on an annual basis, we will be looking at that and trying to find ways, especially based on those conversations with our partners in the West Valley, on how to bring that 2030 date closer into a direction where you and your constituents would be more acceptable.
My concern is that we promised people back in Transit 2000 that we would have this built and that we would be breaking ground now. We're actually pushing it back. I mean, Rick Neymar made a great comment that we're moving faster, but with this original plan, we're actually pushing it back. I want to figure out a way where we can actually put it back on target. I support the Central Avenue, South Phoenix, because that's my district. It's going right from the I-17 to Baseline. That's District 7, and I know how it's going to be an economic engine for South Phoenix also. And I'm not trying to say take away from one to give to the other, but how can we figure out how we can help out both? We have needy families, we have individuals that use our public transportation on a daily basis. I mean, we just put in a brand new transit station, which is highly used in the Maryville area, and that's right there at Desert Sky Mall. And I believe that there's a great need. We have working families that need transportation from the West Valley as much as we need it from South Phoenix also. So I like to advocate for both, and I like to see if there's a way for us to go back and think of a way to move not just from the state capitol to Central Avenue, but how can we move the individuals that actually work at the state capitol, at the federal buildings, at the county buildings, and our city buildings to work? And I think that's a need, and that's what I'll continue to advocate. I heard Mr. Gray talk about that, and I agree. We've been talking about economic development, how this light rail would bring that to the West Valley, and I think we need not to turn our backs on the West Valley at this time.
Thank you very much. Councilman Pastor, and then I'll come over to Councilman Gallego, please.
I have a question regarding the Thomas. Has anybody notified people that live on Thomas that there's considering a rapid, since I live right on Thomas, and it'll be hitting in that area, and there's homes right there. When will that conversation start and that vision go through?
Councilwoman Pastor, Mayor Stanton, the answer is no. We have not started the process of working with the community on the bus rapid transit. We have it several years out, so we do have the time to work with the community to make sure that whatever is input is works well for our community. So most likely we wouldn't start those conversations until later this year.
So this year, so 2016?
That's
soon.
That's my plan,
that's
Councilwoman.
soon. Okay.
To start the discussion, not to implement.
Okay. The other question, I have a little bit of history, knowing a lot of the history, but the South Central was not part of the original piece, which there was a deep debate within the community as to why it wasn't part of the original piece. And with all the studies and everything that has been done, South Central did demonstrate that that's where the high usage was, and where really it should have been part of the original piece. And for whatever reason, it was overlooked. And until community really, and until the department really started to study the South Central and realized that's where the ridership was really coming from. And along with the West Side, I am more than positive that if we look at our studies in the West Side, that's where all the ridership will be coming from the South and the West Side. And so I'm glad to see that there was a fight for it to be at this point. But in doing that, the West Side and other areas in Northeast, because I have colleagues that would talk about their Northeast, are now being pushed back. And so we really have to look at this dynamic once again and say, really, where should it land? And how should it land? And really looking at the data on where it should be going. If it wasn't for a feasibility study that got secured, this South Central would not be happening. And it was because of the feasibility study and the push for it and knowing the ridership, this is where we're at today, and this is the conversation we're having today. And so I think the public needs to understand the history of how we got here today. And the fact that that's why it's front and center, because we know where the ridership is, and we know where it's connecting and how our transit lines, our bus lines are connecting to all the working class families that are all in that area. So that's I just wanted to give some history about it.
Mayor,
Let me jump on that real quick. I think for accuracy purposes, I think that's, everyone has, we all have our own knowledge of history. I think what happened is that, I don't think there's ever been a doubt that South and West Phoenix would have one of the highest, if not the highest, ridership in the city of Phoenix. The issue back in Transit 2000 was that the federal matching funds created a perverse incentive not to go into some of the poorer neighborhoods of the community, because you didn't get credit for federal dollars based on ridership. Instead, you got credit for number of cars that would be removed from the roads. An area like South Phoenix, where there was already a high public transit ridership utilizing the bus system, there would be fewer cars taken off the road. And so the city of Phoenix responded to what I would describe as the perverse incentive system from Washington, which not only in Phoenix, Arizona, but cities across the country, because of the perverse incentive system, poor neighborhoods where there was high public transit ridership were bypassed as light rail kind of moved across the country. Thank goodness the current administration in Washington has changed that. The Obama administration has taken that perverse incentive away, has rewarded cities and communities that want to go into neighborhoods where there's going to be high ridership, especially some of the poorer neighborhoods across the country. And in fact, this administration has rewarded those projects that have, quote, ladders of opportunity, meaning those areas where you can use federal dollars to connect people best to education, employment, and other needs. And I have argued, as so many people at this table have argued, that there is no better project in the United States of America that represents the goals of ladders of opportunity than the South Central extension. So I don't think it was to be honest, Councilman, I don't think it was a lack of political desire back in 2000. I think it was unfortunately responding to the requirements of federal matching funds. And now the federal matching funds, I think, better represent priorities across the country and priorities here in the city of Phoenix. Of course, the challenge was I don't want to get too political here. The challenge was in Proposition 104 was to get the entire community to vote for a transportation infrastructure investment proposal that put so much of the priority on South Phoenix, the Northwest Extension, and including West Phoenix, frankly, knowing that there are less votes in that area. And I, for one, am proud of this city. I am proud of my city that stepped up to the plate and voted overwhelmingly to support transportation infrastructure investment, even though much of that investment is going to happen in neighborhoods where there were fewer votes. And I think that is a great testament because the public understood that not only were we investing in a transportation infrastructure investment, but there was a lot of social equity that went along with that as well. And the people of this community stepped up to the plate and supported overwhelmingly. So I just, that's, having been on this council since 2000 and worked with Mayor Rimza during the time of the implementation of Transit 2000, I think there was a lot of frustration that they weren't able to deliver it to South Phoenix at that time. And I think this should have been on the map before, and the fact that we are taking South Phoenix and properly moving it ahead, I think is an understanding that we're making up for what happened in the past. That it should have happened previously, but it didn't happen previously, but it's happening now. Councilman Geigo.
Thank you so much. And while we're continuing to recognize the history that got us here today, Councilwoman Pastor was talking about that we got a feasibility study, but we ought to credit Congressman Pastor for getting that feasibility study and really helping us put this where it belonged on the federal radar screen, and then many others, including most recently our mayor, pushing it forward and talking about the important attributes of the South Central Extension and why it deserves to be, as it is, the only Western ladder step program in our entire country, getting the federal attention that it finally deserves. But thank you to Congressman Pastor for kicking that off, along with a lot of great people who are here today and many who are not. But thank you to Tommy, Sonia, Victor, Rosie, everyone who's been really pushing to make sure we have equality and a plan that covers our entire community. We have a rail system that already goes to the east and the central city, and now it's going to be going west, north, and finally to the south. And this vote is very strategic. We're putting forward a plan that leverages different funding source. Commissioner Neymark mentioned it, but we're looking at a South Central Extension, which is our most competitive for federal money. And then we're going to be moving forward on the west, that may be our most competitive for regional funding. And we talked at Councilwoman Williams' subcommittee about the fact that there may be a Prop 500 coming and that the western extensions are very competitive for that regional funding, because frankly, that's how we'll be able to serve the West Valley. And so that is a great example of a project that can be a Maricopa County partnership, because the people who benefit are throughout our county, and it will serve many regional west side destinations. So we're being very strategic. We said we would look to maximize the taxpayer of Phoenix investment, and today we're moving forward in an order that will help us to do that. So I think that is very wise. What an exciting day for us. Residents want connectivity. When we did the Plan Phoenix, #1, we want more connectivity, and they wanted it yesterday. So today we're voting on a plan that respects the input we got in My Plan Phoenix, as well as the Citizens Commission on the Future of Transportation, which said, can you expedite all investments, but particularly the rail? Our residents were excited about the more than $8 billion of economic activity we've seen along the system, and they want it in more of our city. So I'm very excited that today we'll be moving forward with a plan that really speeds up our Phoenix investments in light rail, and I look forward to voting yes.
Thank you very much. Councilman Nowakowski, additional comments?
Mayor, I just wanted to bring that point about Congressman Pastor, because that's really the reason why we have light rail going down to South Phoenix. It was his leadership, his advocacy for the individuals in South Phoenix that made that possible. And once again, I really feel strong that we need to move that date a little forward, on the phase 2 on the I-10. The individuals in Maryville have a need. We need to make sure that they have some type of transportation. If you drive down Thomas, it's even worse than the I-10. Unless you start to add an extra bus lane or something down Thomas Road, I don't see that happening. I think it's wishful thinking. I think even if you drive down the carpool lane down the I-10, you're stuck in traffic. So we're in a gridlock right now. We're looking at the 202, South Mountain 202, connecting to the I-10, so it's even going to be worse in the near future. So we really need to figure out a plan to bringing that light rail into the west side. I don't want to hear conversations that we're going to wait for the West Valley cities to agree on something. I believe that we as a city of Phoenix have promised people back in 2000 that we would go up to 79th Avenue. I think we keep our word on that, and we try to take as many cars off the I-10 as possible, because what we're going to be doing in the next 4 years is putting a lot more cars from Ahwatukee, from Levine, from Estrella onto the I-10. So it's going to be even a worse situation that we're in right now. So I really like whoever makes the motion to really include to looking at ways of moving that phase 2 a little sooner. And if you put that in there, I would vote yes on it.
All right, thank you very much, Councilman Nowakowski. Additional comments? Councilman Williams?
At this point, during the conversation, I haven't heard one word about the Northwest Extension Phase 2. And I want to be assured that it is included in this plan, and it will be, I think it's 2023 now, because it was promised for 2012.
Yeah,
So-
Mayor, Councilwoman Williams, a part of this recommendation is moving that date up from the 2026 to 2023.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure it was on the record and everybody was aware of that. Thank you.
Mayor,
Councilman Nowakowski.
I think we should name it the Williams Express from all the way to Metro Center. She's been advocating for the last 8 years I've been on council, and she's been a real strong advocate in redeveloping that whole area in the Metro Center. And I believe this is going to be that cherry on top to bring businesses and to really redevelop that whole Metro Center area. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you for advocating for all those individuals that live out there in the northeast side of town.
Thank you. Mayor, I would like to mention, too, that we need to really have lengthy, in-depth discussions with ADOT. We have taken the lion's share of responsibility for a lot of this gridlock around the valley. And, I mean, Phoenix built 51. Phoenix has been the one that's always led the way. And they have set on the spine study for a long time. They've used South Mountain as an excuse. I'm not buying that anymore. I think they need to get on board with us and decide what priorities are, and because they have funding available to them, they could pony up some money, but it needs to match, I think, our plan as well as the regional plan. So I think putting a little pressure here and there would be healthy. I haven't heard anything in the last year from them, and I think it's about time they took notice.
Thank you very much. Additional comments, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, this is it's an exciting opportunity to talk about transportation. Albert, you've come before this council before, and you've been to, Maria, I would say the same thing to you. You've been in front of this council, subcommittee meetings, certainly out in the community, and sometimes it's not always this exciting. But what an exciting time to be here. As far as the projects that are before us for 2A, I'm very excited about the Northwest Light Rail extension. We are 54 days away from cutting a ribbon there on 19th Avenue in Dunlap. The newest 3.2 miles of the light rail system in the valley will connect 7 schools, 2 hospitals, a couple of grocery stores. It's nearby places of worship, senior housing facilities, connect 5,000 daily riders, and a lot of that economic development opportunity that we see along light rail from Mesa and Tempe on into downtown Phoenix. I look forward to seeing some of that coming out west. And of course, going south, and I know that we're going to be hitting on South Phoenix. I couldn't agree more. It's something that frankly, we should have had a long time ago. Along with Northwest, that particular extension that we're going to be activating in about 54 days, it's just exciting to see that we're a step closer to getting it out to Metro Center. And I look over to Councilwoman Williams because she truly has been a real advocate, not just for Phase 2 of the Northwest extension, but frankly, transportation in our city. So I know it's important for all of us. We have, overall, have we had the political will at the federal level? Probably not, frankly, not for the state of Arizona. I know that when I go back there for meetings and I've met with, certain members of the transportation staff there, Congressman Pastor has been such a critical ally, and I wish we had more help for him out there. He's done a great deal of work. I know Congressman Gallego will also do a great job as we move forward. Mayor, you have made transportation and infrastructure really a legacy type of item for yourself and for our city. And I don't think we would have got this far without your focus and your support. So you probably don't hear it enough, but you deserve a great deal of credit. So thank you. Thank you for just digging in on this particular issue. On the corridors and what we have before us in 2A, the West Phoenix Glendale extension, look, I'd like to see that come in sooner. That is something that, for the voters who voted on Proposition 104, they were promised that extension as well. I know that a lot of these in Northwest Light Rail extension should have been finished, as we talked about, right? That was part of the last vote. Let's not forget when people cast that vote for Proposition 104, they were, and it was right on the ballot. It was connecting Grand Canyon University, as well as all of our universities. In fact, that was one of the biggest points on why people supported Prop 104. It was to connect our education institutions, and GCU is a growing institution. I believe 10,000 students on campus now, and that number will continue to grow. And so I'm pleased to see that we're still on track, that's there. As funding starts to roll in, and in fact, I know Prop 104 funding has begun to be collected as of this year. We'll see where that goes. I too would like to see the West extension moved up a little bit. I don't know how we do that in this particular vote or conversation. Frankly, I'd like to see I want to see it going into Maryville. I want to see it going into West Phoenix. That's where the ridership is. We just talked about bus transportation and the highest bus terminal that we have, highest as far as the ridership goes, other than Central Station and downtown, is actually West Phoenix. It's actually what we have there in Maryville. That tells us that the ridership is there, and it's a deserving area of public transportation. It would be great to see it there. I still believe that we missed the mark. We, generally speaking, I was not on the council at the time, but the mark was missed, and I've been very open about this. I would have liked to have not seen light rail on I-10. I'm supporting this, and I will support light rail on I-10, but I think we missed the mark when we put arguably the largest economic development tool that we have, and we stick it on I-10. I would have loved to have seen that on Thomas Road. I would love to see it on Indian School Road, frankly. But to put the largest economic engine that we have, arguably, the catalyst for economic development, you know, I wish we would have seen that on Thomas Road or Indian School. It's on I-10. It was before my time, and I'm going to support it. As I mentioned, in 54 days, we're going to cut the ribbon on the Northwest Light Rail extension on 19th Avenue, and I'm glad it's 19th Avenue and not I-17. What it's going to do for 19th Avenue, it's going to do far more good for that area, as far as I'm concerned, than it would have if we would stick it on I-17. But I guess at this point, it's beside the point. I'm supporting the Northwest Light Rail extension, supportive of this particular plan. I look forward to seeing this coming out west and south and throughout our city. And like Rick Neymark, I'm looking forward to all of the other aspects of this proposition and all that's going to happen with our streets and everything else, because obviously light rail is just part of it. So with that, I am supportive of the motion.
All right, thank you very much. Any additional comments?
Yes, Mayor?
Councilman, please, go ahead. Councilman Gates.
Yes, thank you very much. I have been trying to listen as closely as I can to all this, but had a little bit of trouble hearing, so I do apologize if I'm repeating things that have been said already. But I did have a question for Maria Hyatt. On the, just to clarify, make sure this is clear for the record, with respect to the Northeast Phoenix leg, at this point, so the motion that is on the table, the proposed completion has not changed from 2034, but there will be a feasibility study starting in the next few months, and there is a strong possibility that that date may move up based upon the feasibility study. Is that an accurate statement?
Mayor Stanton, Councilman Gates, you got it absolutely right.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification. As you know, I noted in our last infrastructure subcommittee, I was very disappointed to see the dearth of projects that are scheduled for street projects in District 3. When you combine that with the fact that we don't have a date moving up on the light rail that's proposed to go into District 3, I appreciate this clarification that there is a significant likelihood that this date may move up, because although I appreciate your comments, Mayor, about really the need for infrastructure being improved throughout the city, the reality is that the residents of District 3, just like residents across the city, will be making a significant investment via this higher tax, and so it's important that they see something occurring, to see a change, to see improvements in their area. And then one other thing that I haven't really heard touched upon, but maybe if staff wants to talk about additional efforts that will be taken moving forward in these next stages of light rail with regard to the significant impact that these projects have on businesses during the construction process.
Mayor, Councilman Gates, you're actually, in the next presentation, when we get into South Central, we're going to talk about it, but what staff will be coming in the next coming months is to talk about the city of Phoenix doing something that's unique throughout the country, which is creating a early action light rail business assistance program that would start several years before construction to do the best to prepare our businesses before we break ground.
I appreciate that comment, Albert, and I want to thank you for the great work that you and your team did on the Northwest, the most recent extension along 19th Avenue. You've done a great job. You worked hard at it, but we have to do better. I think we all know that, I'm pleased to hear about what's going to be coming forward to the council.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Councilman Nowakowski?
I'd like some clarification about the West Phoenix Glendale. Do you have plans for that? Is that ready to move? Is it, according to your chart, you're going to still meet with the community, meet with the city of Glendale? And
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, we are about 2 years into that study, and we are at the point that by the end of this year is when we'd be in a position. We still have to do a lot of work with the community and the major stakeholders, of course, with the Council District 4 as well as Council District 5. But the ultimate goal would be to have an alignment and then a transportation mode selected for that corridor here within the next year.
so once again, I feel that the people from the West Valley, from the Maryville area is getting shafted because we're moving this to 2026, and we're moving the Maryville area to 2030, 7 years out. This plan isn't even in place. We voted back in 2000 for Transit 2000 with the I-10 Phase 2 plan. Then we voted again back in 2004 with Prop 400, and that plan was on there. And then we just voted recently last year to approve the plan for an I-10 light rail. I just don't understand why you would move back a plan that we had since 2000, and then the plan that we don't even have solid yet is being placed prior to something that was on the books for years. Could you explain that to me?
All right, Mr. City Manager, maybe you can take a whack at that. Why is the recommended changes on proposed dates, why is that being presented here to this council today?
Sure, I'll back up just a little bit. What was on the map and the ballot in Transit 2000 was the existing line, Metro Center, and then there were the options of 4 other lines of which the city would have to decide along the way, and that was South Central, Northeast, Northwest, and West. There was not enough money in Transit 2000 to do all of those, and so the idea was one of those might be done if possible. As Maria said, the economy got in the way, and we were only able to do the main line and part of Northwest. Just a side note, South Central has always been on the city's plans. It was the regional plan in 2004 which excluded South Central because of what the mayor described, the perverse incentives from the federal government. And this council has fought for the last 10 years to get South Central back in to the regional plan, and you've been successful in doing it. What we're doing here is now that we have the resources, those lines are all back in with possibilities. What staff is saying is, with these resources, we have the ability to do Metro Center and South Central sooner because of the characteristics of those lines, the federal process. The West I-10 has been one that we've been working on for a long time, and what the feds have told us is it's too big in one shot. You cannot get it all done in one shot. You won't get any money. So if we go forward with that now, we won't get anything. So the plan was to split it into 2 to get the capital done, to be a launching point for West Phoenix, that when it's a 7-mile project, then it will probably be enough of a bite size that the feds will fund it. I misspoke. There's actually also a Glendale extension on the Transit 2000 map as well. So these things have all been in place since 2000. I think what staff is reflecting is the reality of how the federal, how did you describe it, Mayor? Priorities or worked today, what they're telling us about the ability to get funding for extremely large projects versus smaller projects and how we can advance them. So this is staff's best understanding in conjunction with the federal government and with the regional funds of how to advance the projects. I think for each of these, we would never say that we're going to just sit back and not try and move them faster, but the reality is the federal government has a limited ability to digest projects from one region. We have a limited ability, and so lining them up in this way is what we think is the most realistic path. And getting to the capital has always been the most critical link to being able to have a chance to get to West Phoenix. And that's going to be the hard lift here, is getting to the capital. So keeping that capital line in play is really the most important thing to keeping the west side in play as well.
My concern was about the phasing. The phase 2 is actually put way out, and we have other projects that are just being created that are going to be built prior to that phase 2. So I understand the phasing part, but why isn't phase 2 prior to any other newer, besides Central Avenue, South Phoenix, I mean, for example, the West Phoenix, Glendale, that's not even developed yet.
Yeah, I think the West Phoenix Glendale actually was also one on the Transit 2000 map. So it has always actually been a project that we've been working on. It's kind of come and gone with the city of Glendale's ability to decide on routing. They're back in on that, and so it has also been in this sort of simultaneous queue of projects going. So I wouldn't say that the Central Glendale West Phoenix line wasn't there. It was there in 2000. Each of these lines has their own characteristics based on where the federal government is at any given point in time.
So we're adjusting to the requirements of the federal government.
There's a lot of this that has to do with how the Federal Transit Administration prioritizes, how the administrations prioritize money, where there is activity in that. The other thing I would just add is it's really important, and it has always been, for elected officials from the city to go to Washington, D.C. and be there with the Department of Transportation and the administration. That's really how we've advanced as far as we have. And so our elected officials being in Washington is a really critical step that many of you have taken that step. And we want to continue to do that from the city of Phoenix.
Mr. Manager, I have a question. So in the presentation here today, and I certainly support the motion, and we're going to have this back before this council regularly to go into finer grain detail and to learn if there have been any developments as it relates to funding or challenges in particular lines so that we can maximize it. But we haven't heard any discussion of public-private partnerships. And at least initially, and I don't want to present public-private partnerships as the panacea that solves all, infrastructure investment issues, but certainly since Transit 2000, there have been advancements in public-private partnerships that allow projects using private financing backed up by government sources over time to allow you to speed up projects. I think Councilman Nowakowski raises a good point. Is it really an either-or proposition? First off, I wish we'd be a little more ambitious on the South Phoenix line, because I think we're, to be perfectly honest, and I respect everyone at the table, I think we're playing a little safe on the timeline on that and Northwest Extension on 2023. If we can get it in the president's budget next year, I'm struggling to understand why it would, with all the engineering work that's been done and the Tiger grant that we received, why we can't fast forward the construction on that a little bit more. But even on the I-10 West project, for example, why aren't we looking at models that ADOT has followed for funding Southwest Loop, et cetera? I mean, what are the possibilities there? And does that present a realistic chance that we might be able to fast forward some of these projects, knowing that this is a 35-year dedicated funding source for transportation? I don't know.
Mayor, I think that's a great point. And actually, once we get to these next phases where we have more engineering, that's where we'll start getting these options for public-private partnerships. And it may be like the Loop 202, an opportunity to advance things quicker. We're not at a point yet where we can say this will be or won't be a public-private partnership, but we are certainly not forestalling that. That's certainly an option now as we move forward after this to bring into play. And frankly, you're right. The west line from the Capitol West may be a real good candidate because of the freeway corridor. Yeah. That is probably one of our best alternatives for a public-private partnership, and then we'll see what that does to the schedule when we get to that point. So,
all right, so I would request, I don't know, I assume it'll be a positive vote today. We don't know until the votes are there, but if it does pass, my request publicly at this meeting, and maybe others feel the same way, is that we, as soon as possible, if we haven't already had those discussions, and I know privately you and I have had this discussion many, many times, it appears that some of my peer cities, our peer cities, have done more with public-private partnerships to advance important infrastructure projects, and I don't want Phoenix to be left behind. And the voters voted, and they want to see action, and every line that's being discussed up here is an incredibly worthy investment for the future of our city. And so I politely and respectfully, but challenge you to be a little more creative. Little more creative on the timeline on South Central and Northwest, and a little more creative on public-private partnership financing opportunities for I-10 West, the Glendale line extension, because I think that's what the public is demanding, that we get this going as soon as possible. All right, great. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, that's what they voted on. That's what they voted on. Also, and I'm glad that you clarified that the West Phoenix Glendale line, I will be advocating for every one of these lines, and frankly, some of the things that we have to identify and just realize is that we have a growing university on Camelback Road. As we speak, 10,000 students that are there, and that university is going to continue to grow. So we have to, the voters recognize that is an area that needs light rail, and I don't want to go off target there. So that said, I know that there's a motion. I will be supporting the motion.
All right, there's a motion, there's a second. Any other additional or final comments? We should, all that discussion aside, this is a really exciting vote. The opportunity to advance the project in the South Phoenix so that tens of thousands of people, particularly young people, have such a closer connection to education, employment, job centers, all the things that we want. Changing the trajectory of people's lives quicker because of this vote. The opportunity to see what I think is going to be the most successful mall redevelopment project in the United States of America, just like Metro Center back in the day was the biggest, under one roof mall in the United States of America. It's gone through hard times. To see that be one of the greatest comeback stories, in large part driven by the accessibility of public transportation, especially light rail entering Metro City. To see the revitalization of Metro Center, and it's going to happen, is an incredibly exciting thing that we get to vote on today to help make that happen. And then for all the other reasons, these other projects as well, all of them are worthwhile. People voted for transportation. Let's get this party started. All right, with that, roll call.
Councilman Gallego?
Yes.
Councilman Gates?
Yes.
Councilman Nowakowski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pastor?
Yes.
Councilman Waring? Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Mayor Stanton?
Yes, the motion passes on a 7-1 vote on 2A. I should mention Councilman DeCiccio is not here. There's a very important meeting going on in Ahwatukee Foothills right now, and he's taking care of some very important district business for him, and I think he made the right choice to be in Ahwatukee for that very important meeting. Okay, next is 2B. Which is going to dive in a little more detail on the South Central extension. We're going to hear from our professional city staff on this issue. Some of the folks who have come have testified already in favor of South Central. If you have something additional to add, you certainly may, but you don't have to. Mr. City Manager, who's going to heal that one? Please.
Mayor, members of the council, like you said, this is an exciting time for transportation, and just kind of segueing from the initial presentation, we're going to talk a little more specific about South Central and the next steps for this particular corridor. This is a map that you all have seen before, and in essence it reflects the alignment which will connect downtown south into South Central to approximately the Central and Baseline area. And as was mentioned in several of your comments before, this has been a project that has been a great partnership and supported not only here at the local level, but with our regional partners, and specifically it all began through the efforts of our federal partner, and again, through Congressman Pastor at the time back in 2011, with the feasibility study that really got the ball rolling. We then got another grant in 2012 to help finalize the alignment and the mode, and really began doing some environmental work, which again was supported by the Federal Transit Administration through a Tiger grant. And with that, we are currently working on finalizing the exact station locations, working with our streets department in Valley Metro on the roadway configuration, looking at all of the ridership, not just today, but projecting 20 years out, and truly trying to talk to the multimodal connectivity and the future of the infrastructure investment and with all of the development and land use in this area. Mayor, you mentioned this a little earlier about the importance of the Ladder Step program, and by far this was one of the most important transportation agendas on for Secretary Fox, and it really speaks to three different areas: that how, through transportation projects, specifically in our case a light rail project, can we help to revitalize the community and maximize the connectivity for people to get to important places such as work and education. And when you look at this map, and this is actually how the map the DOT put out, they made the Phoenix Star the biggest star in the entire country. That part I'm kind of joking. But that was them, not us. I did not, we had nothing to do with making that star a little special for us. But the reality is that we are the only city on this map west of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We are very proud to be recognized by the Department of Transportation in that regard, and really speaks to our project here in South Phoenix for light rail that it has that federal partnership. And the reason why, it's about the people. Just like with all of our corridors, we have a lot of unique communities, a lot of unique dynamic areas. And in South Central, the cultural history, the richness of the community, the connection to education, so many families, and truly a community that at every one of our meetings, and we've had hundreds of public meetings, they've always been engaged, had all of the right questions, and we continue to work with them in all those regards. As was mentioned earlier by Councilman Gates, what are we going to do about business assistance? Well, we know that it's a little different for businesses. While some of them might be excited about the economic development or the additional business opportunities, the construction challenges are a reality, and the best way for us to work with them as staff is to meet them head on. We did a lot of great efforts on 19th Avenue. We learned a lot from the initial program, but we can do better. We always can do better. And the thing that we've heard from the South Central businesses is that you need to start earlier. You need to help us earlier so we're best prepared the moment you break ground. So as I mentioned at the earlier presentation, we will be coming here in a few months to the City Council to put a proposal in front of you to implement what's going to be called a City of Phoenix Light Rail Early Action Business Assistance Program. In that, I'll describe the scope, what the schedule will look like, and then what the budget we would need to be able to implement that program to help our businesses early as we can. Today, what we're looking at is really what the mayor had talked about earlier, which is getting into the president's budget this fall and really finalizing our environmental assessment and asking the City Council for $1.5 million to complete all of the requirements from the federal government. And just to talk about a few of them, what we will be doing between now and the end of the year is developing a project management plan, exactly how we will provide project oversight. We also have to do a real estate acquisition plan. We then have to talk about our fleet plan. So once we add these miles, exactly how many vehicles do we need to purchase to make sure that we hit all of our headways to provide the service. We need to do a 20-year financial plan. And then the big thing that we have to do by the end of the year prior to making the submittal into the president's budget is actually finalize the cost estimate for this project, and that is the main thing we need to get done. So with that, staff requests council approve a $1.5 million amendment agreement with Valley Metro to complete the FTA requirements. And as noted there, both the Citizen Transit Commission as well as the Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee approved this as well. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, why don't I entertain a motion? I do have cards, so we'll entertain a motion, second, and we'll get to the cards. Is that okay?
I move the City Council approve a $1.5 million agreement and move the South Central project forward in compliance with FTA
I'll second
requirements.
that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll go to the cards. First card is Rosie Lopez, followed by Armando Reese, then Vashti Supli.
Mayor and Council, again, my name is Rosie Lopez at 1133 East Milada Drive, and I'm in Councilwoman Kay Gallegos' district. And I have been serving on the I served on the light rail back in 2013, and also with David Doobie with the Health Department regarding the assessment and how it would impact the citizens and their health and ridership and accessibility to grocery stores, et cetera. And I did a lot of work on this, and I appeared before many groups, including the South Mountain Village Planning Committee. I appeared before the Rebecca Friend allowed me to speak to all the Labor Council. and I went before many other groups just trying to push for this. And I have before me, and I agree with everything that's been said today. I'm so excited about this project because it's been something that I didn't really know if it was going to take place. And I thank Sonia Pastor. Of course, Congressman Ed Pastor made this happen, of course, with money. But I thank her, and I thank Councilwoman Thalda Williams for allowing me to speak at her subcommittee and supporting this project. But also what I was trying to do, not only support the project to go to Baseline, but also to go up to South Mountain Park. And I still have that dream, and I hope that you don't let it go, because I think it was a great idea in terms of getting an entertainment center at the base of the mountain before you go into the mountain. And I have a lot of support for that. And I just wanted to share that with you so you can see what kind of work I did, and also because I want you to see how the people from Maricopa County and from the South Phoenix area support this project. I want to present to you a copy of my petitions that I gathered from all these people. Some of them were door to door, and some of them were with labor groups, with all kinds of groups that I could muster signatures for. And I thank you so much for all your support, because I really think that this is a fantastic thing. And not only for South Phoenix, but I also applaud you, Councilman Valenzuela, for pushing for the West Valley. I lived there for many years, and they desperately need it as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Armando Reese, followed by Vashti Suplee.
Good afternoon. My name is Armando Reese, and I'm with Espiritu Community Development Corporation. It's a nonprofit group that works in operating charter schools, community advocacy, and community development. Vice Mayor, members of the council, and staff. Also in support of the extension to South Central Avenue, but with some caution. I know it's very exciting. Everybody watched as the metro was being built through the, downtown Phoenix, and now it's going to come into our community. One of the things that we began to do 2 years ago was to meet and just look at what's occurring in our community. And even though we've worked, lots of us have worked in our community for lots of years, there's still some struggles. And here's what we found. We did a study from 16th Street to 19th Avenue, from the river bottom to South Mountain. And there's approximately 68,000 people who live in that area. And we found, I think, three glaring statistics that just kind of jumped out at us. Only 25% of the population receives a high school diploma or higher. 10% of the people vote. And then lastly is that 40% of our community lives in poverty. And out of that 40%, 15% live in extreme poverty. That means families of four that live on about $10,000 a year. 55% of the population along that South Phoenix corridor are kids 19 and younger. And what this transportation corridor permits is for these kids to be connected to the rest of downtown Phoenix, educational opportunities, economic opportunities. But I would urge two things. One is work with groups like ours, advocacy groups like Rosie, Tom, Victor, because we're in the trenches, and you know, we deal with folks, and this is going to have an impact on their lives. As we watch the construction occur on North Central Avenue, it took a long time for that construction project to be completed. There were many businesses that were closed. There's lots of small businesses along South Central Avenue, mom and pop stores. And if you're not aggressive and you don't do the construction quickly, there's going to be economic development and there's going to be economic benefit, but it's not going to be for the people who currently have their businesses there now. Work with us. Get the construction done as quickly as possible. Work with groups like ours that are in the trenches so there can be mitigating funds that will help the impact on businesses and the impact on schools in that area. Thank you,
Mr. Reese.
Thank you very much. Vashti Suplee.
Mayor and Council, my name is Vashti Tice Sipley. I live at 918 West Roosevelt Street. I'm in Councilwoman Laura Pastor's district. And I'm interim executive director for Audubon, Arizona's Nina Mason Pulliam Rio Salado Audubon Center. And we're delighted that the planning includes us as a stop. I do want to say that we have had thousands of children from the school districts in South Phoenix and from Phoenix Union coming to our center for education programming that emphasizes our natural environment. And we love these partnerships. We are excited about the light rail coming down South Central, making it a lot easier for these children and their families to travel to business and work and play and pleasure, and that they will ideally spend even more time enjoying the natural resource amenities of the Rio Salado restoration project and our center by being able to get there more easily with the light rail being in place. And so I thank you for approving the first motion, and I encourage you to approve this one. And thank you, Mayor Stanton, for encouraging that maybe this can happen even sooner. We are very excited about it, and we really appreciate the support of this mayor and council in helping Phoenix be a leadership, sustainable community.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and we love the Audubon. We appreciate that very much. In favor, not wishing to speak, Robert Rogius, did you wish to speak? You okay? All right, so that's all the cards I have. We have a motion and a second. Any additional comments by members of this council? I know we had a thorough discussion on 2A, which kind of bled into, as it reasonably should, 2B. I would speak to Mr. Ruiz and say, and I know you speak on behalf of a lot of businesses and small businesses in that area, and I think you're going to have incredible council members that represent the area. They're going to ensure that the construction schedule happen in a way that minimizes the impact. There's no way we could say it's going to have no impact. That would be an inappropriate statement. But the decisions have to be whether you do the construction in small segments, which is quicker for that area, although it elongates the overall project, or you do longer segments that take a little longer in a particular area but shorten the overall project. And I know you're going to get advocates that are going to try to probably err on the side of a construction timeline that will minimize the amount of construction in front of any one business for any given period of time. I have a high level of confidence that's going to occur, but your continued advocacy is going to be very important in that regard. All right, any other comments, Councilman Nowakowski?
Mayor, going with that, we have a big project in South Phoenix, the Rio Salado, Avenida Rio Salado, and exactly what we did was we brought in all the different staff from the city of Phoenix. We were meeting on a weekly basis. There was actually about 40 of us in a room, and it was basically the first time we've ever done that to really think it out, how we can actually build the Avenida Rio Salado without affecting the businesses. And then we reached out to the stakeholders and the businesses, and we've been having monthly meetings, and it's just incredible when we come together and we find that common ground. I mean, not everyone was happy, but we did find that common ground and made things work. So I hope that we're going to be doing the same thing with the light rail, that will bring all the stakeholders, all the community leaders, and individuals together, and we'll try to find that common ground. It's not going to make everyone happy, but I know that we're going to do the best we can.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Councilwoman?
Thank you. Thank you. I think we as your elected officials are committed to doing everything we can for a great process. And we are just so excited about that people will be able to see so many of the treasures of the warehouse district, South Central, South Phoenix, South Mountain, places that are so important to our civil rights history, like American Legion, Post 41, beautiful natural resources like the Audubon. There are real treasures of our city that people will get to visit when this light rail extension is completed. And we are so excited about the people who it will serve, people who are so deserving, many, many young people, and a lot of City of Phoenix assets, including City of Phoenix housing, where we have many residents who either have no car or only one car for very large families, and this will be economic opportunity, education. This really is a great win for our community. It will go through our warehouse district, which is so hot now, new entrepreneurial activity, new arts activity, moving there every day. There's another great announcement, and it's particularly a hot spot for millennials who have told us over and over again they want options. They want to be able to choose whether they have a car. They want to be able to bike, to take rail, and so this is meeting that need as well. And it really is an extension that has had an enormous amount of community engagement, so credit to Petra, Victor, everyone who's been out there pounding the pavement one-on-one, talking to people at doors. Very excited for this extension to move forward.
Thank you very much. Councilman Pastor?
And for me, it's very exciting, being a native and seeing the economic growth that we will see with this light rail going down Central. You can no longer cruise down Central, I guess, because back in the day we could cruise, but that won't be happening. We might as well reminisce or start a little bit, a club for a while, but it'll be nice. What's very exciting about it is also that mom and pop stores are going to be part of this process. And so I'm asking staff to be very proactive with our mom and pop stores, because this is very different type of business plan than it is from down Central to the expansion of 19th. These are true mom and pop stores that we'll have to engage them much sooner in advance, years in advance, in order for them to understand the impact that it will have on them as we grow and build the light rail, and for them to be prepared for it and know that they could survive during that time period of growth. And so this is completely, for me, a different business plan, and I reiterate that because I want to make sure that those mom and pop stores survive, and that our community survives through this change. It's also going to be very different, because you're going to see a lot of redevelopment and a lot of people wanting to come, wanting to visit or be part of the change, which will mean economics will change within our community, and prices, property taxes will probably rise. And so we need to prepare also our community for that dynamic so that they can maintain within the area. So those are some of the issues that, not issues, but situations I see, and that we can come to a great solution for a vibrant community. So those are some suggestions.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Any other comments from members of this council? We have a motion on 2B. We have a second. Roll call.
Councilwoman Gallego?
Yes.
Councilman Gates?
Yes.
Councilman Nowakowski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pastor?
Yes.
Councilman Waring? Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Mayor Stanton?
Yes, so the motion passes on a 7-0 vote. Councilman Waring was not able to participate, but I'm sure he would have voted yes if he had the opportunity. No, all right. He can speak for himself when he gets back. All right, the next item is 2C. 2C involves the 50th Street Station and the 16th Street study. We've talked about a lot of exciting aspects of the near future of our light rail system, and I would argue this is equally as exciting. This is pretty cool stuff. So, Albert, are you going to take this one, or Maria, who's going to take it?
Mayor, members of the council, quickly. Back in February of 2013, under the direction of the mayor and his office, we did a feasibility study to look at possible future stations around the 48th Street area as well as the 16th Street area. And November of 2014, we had recommendations on both of those, which we'll walk through today. At 50th Street, we looked at 3 different options, and unanimously the community was in favor of what's shown here on the aerial, which is option B. And at the March 3rd, 2015 City Council policy meeting regarding specifically Transportation 2050 plan, the City Council approved a recommendation to expedite the construction of a light rail station near the 48th Street and Washington area. And we bring that to your attention as it's the basis for our conversation today and why we are recommending moving this project forward for design and construction. Parallel to this effort, again, through the leadership in the mayor's office, we worked on the, this was a project selected for the mayor's innovation games. And as a part of that process, we were able to work with staff and look at multiple options, and the graphic shown here was the one that was selected by a panel of city staff as well as staff at Valley Metro, and really the general concept of what the group from Dig Studio came up with is trying to find ways to encourage us as we move forward with this future station to maximize the connectivity between the sidewalk area and how individuals can then get to the platform area to have access to the train. So we're excited about the process, and we thought that it was really neat working with your staff on that, Mayor, for the Mayor's Innovation Games, and we were proud to be selected for one of the projects to work on.
That was a really cool idea, although, just to be clear, that is designers and architects, as you know, and you know, when the engineers get in the room, maybe it might change a little bit. We'll see. But right now, it looks pretty cool.
It does, and we will be meeting with them to really look at what kind of elements can we use from their concepts that can even make our project a better one when we're all said and done. So we look forward to that.
All right, we're not voting on this today, but you just pointed out that we had a fun design contest to give us the best ideas, and we want to obviously incorporate as much of that we can, but it has to be approved by this council.
Absolutely, Mayor. And then here in front of you is the schedule that we have. So we hope to move forward between our City Council and Metro Board this month, and then quickly thereafter begin the procurement in the spring and start the actual design work this summer, with the construction following shortly thereafter in the early parts of 17, and the project would actually be open to the public in the spring of 2019. Here is an overview of the budget. The base construction is about $17.3 million, with a contingency of about $4.5 million with escalation, and the total cost for the design and construction of the station is $22.9 million. And quickly, in regards to 16th Street, we are still in the process of working with that community and assessing options to study the technical feasibility of a station there. And what we're going to be asking for council is a scope to allow staff to work with other city departments as well as other developers to look at the ridership modeling, any kind of engineering, and address any potential constraints for a station in the 16th Street area, refine any cost estimates, and last but definitely not least is allowing us to track any future land use and economic development opportunities, which will be a critical component for consideration of a future station in the 16th Street area. With that, staff is requesting council approve an agreement with Valley Metro for an amount not to exceed $23 million to do two things. One is for a design and construct a station at 50th Street, and then to advance a feasibility study in the 16th Street area. And as noted at the bottom, this was also approved by the Citizen Transportation Commission as well as the Transportation Infrastructure Subcommittee this month.
All right, do we have a motion on 2C, and then we have one card from a community leader?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Phil Pangrazio, you should provide testimony on 2C.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Phil Pangrazio. I'm the CEO of Ability 360. People used to know us as ABLE, and also we operate the property down at 50th Street in Washington, which used to be known as the Disability Empowerment Center. We call it the Ability 360 Center now, and also the Piper Sports and Fitness Center for people with disabilities is located there as well. So we have thousands of people with disabilities using that center every year. We're very appreciative and thankful and grateful that this proposal is being considered today. And a lot of people with disabilities are really, really excited about getting a light rail station at 50th Street so they can come and access this fabulous resource that we have built for the community, and I strongly encourage you to support it. And again, thank you, Mayor, and all of you, City Council, for all of you done, because I know everybody has been so supportive of this light rail stop at 50th Street in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil, for your testimony and your leadership and serving on the Leadership Committee for the Transportation Planning. So we have a motion. We have a second. It was just 3 years ago where your leadership, your advocacy brought this to our attention, at least to my attention, the need to have a station near SPOFIT, near Ability 360 Empowerment Center. We voted to study it. There was a lot of skepticism on whether or not we were just going to study it and never actually take action. Obviously, we made this a high priority in Proposition 104, and other than the street improvements that are going to be voted on next week, this will be the first significant step supporting the advancement of the light rail system under Proposition 104, and it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't advocated for this, and other leaders, but hadn't advocated for this 3 years ago to get us on this track so that it was ready when Proposition 104 came. So thank you for your leadership. Other comments or questions, member of the council? Vice Mayor.
Bill, thank you for your leadership. This is long overdue. I've had the opportunity to go out to Ability 360. We did some Fit Phoenix types of events out there with Misty Hyman, our Olympic gold medal swimmer, who's part of the program. And I'm just so impressed and always inspired every time I go there. Top athletes and, frankly, everyday people, kind of like my gym, right? But I tell you, you have some top athletes who go in there, who get their training in, and it's just an impressive place to be. So thank you for your leadership there, and it was a good time. I think it's time for another visit, in fact.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Other comments or questions? All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Roll call.
Councilwoman Gallego?
Yes.
Councilman Gates? Councilman Gates?
Yes.
Councilman Nowakowski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pastor?
Yes.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Mayor Stanton?
Yes, so that item passes on a 7-0 vote. That completes our Transportation 2050 light rail expansion items. Thank you, Mario and Maria and the team for excellent presentation. Now hurry up and get it done. All right, next item on the agenda. Next item on the agenda is our state legislative update. We're going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. In fact, unlike past sessions, I think that we can get an omnibus on a lot of the recommended proposals. I think Councilman Waring and others have given me certain items they wanted to have individual votes on, but unless you want to hear a description of all of the bills, and we can do that, I think I'll hand over to the Vice Mayor. The ones that are circled are the ones that certain council members want individual votes on. So maybe we can get a motion to support staff recommendation on the others to speed it up as reasonably quickly as possible.
Okay.
And obviously, if there are any other items besides the one that the Vice Mayor reads that you want to have an individual vote on, now's the time to let us know so we can pull it out. Vice Mayor.
All right, motion to approve staff recommendation on the following items. Item 3, A, B, D, H, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T.
Mayor Stanton, Tom Remus with the Office of Government Relations.
Please.
If I could point out, we only are looking for actions on items A through N. Those items after that, the council has already taken positions on in past meetings.
Okay, let me restate the
Repeat
motion.
it, yeah. Thank you.
Motion to approve staff recommendation on item 3, A, B, D, H, L, M, N.
All right, that's the motion. Is there a second on that motion? There's a second. Any comments or questions as to the state legislative omnibus motion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Now, I know there's certain council members wanted to have individual discussion and votes on some of the items, which is perfectly fair. I'm just going to go in the order that is on the sheet. The first one had to do with liquor licenses, stores, proximity exception, HB 2372. Vice Mayor? Or, excuse me.
So I asked if this is one to pull out, and I wanted to ask if everybody else do those too.
You don't want to comment, you just want to vote?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Councilman Waring
told it that it doesn't work, but
was kind enough that on the items he wanted an individual vote on, he's willing to vote no in an omnibus way. So those items are C, E, F, G, I, and J.
Okay.
Which would then leave
I had a question about K.
L. Oh, sorry, no, L is good. K is the only one.
That should leave only K.
K is the only one. Does anyone else? Okay, so let's make a motion on those items. You want to favor staff recommendation
Yeah,
on
I
those?
do. Motion to approve staff recommendation on item 3, C, E, F, G, I, and J.
All right, that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions as to those items? That would only leave for a question that Councilman Waring has on SB 1057. Holy cow. Crimes culpable mental state. All the other items would then, the motion is to support staff recommendation. Okay, we have a motion. Councilman Williams, please, you want to pull an item?
Jay, which way is this motion going to?
J
approve
is to
staff
support
recommendation?
staff recommendation, which is to oppose SB 1017 on Municipal Service Act. You want to pull that item? I don't mind doing that. Okay, let's pull out J as well. Any other items that would like to pull out? Okay. So noting that J has been pulled out, so J and K will be, assuming this passes, will be the only remaining items. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, so the item passes on a 7-to-1 vote.
You guys are all supporting staff recommendation. I'm voting no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Councilman Waring, I want to make sure it's clear that the vote was to support staff recommendation. On those items, Councilman Waring was not in support of staff recommendation, voted no. So they'll pass on a 7-1 vote. Now,
Just for clarification, on some of these, the staff is recommending opposition.
Correct, yes.
So it gets a little bit confusing for the audience as well.
yes.
So
And obviously, the purpose of this is to give direction to our legislative team so that they can accurately represent the council's opinion on these items.
it's not voting on the bills themselves.
Correct. Yeah, right. This is just on the staff. So in no way by Jim voting no on these items meant that he opposed them. Some of them staff are recommending opposition to.
So I'm voting to support. I like the idea, but
correct.
It just gets quite tricky. So,
Mayor, was the vote 6-1 then?
Is Councilman Gates, is he offline?
I didn't
He may be
hear.
offline, so
I
6-1 as a result. You're right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is item number J. Concerns SB 1017, which is a proposal on municipal service access cards. There was a hearing on that recently. The staff is recommending that we oppose that item for, based upon local control concerns, that this is an item, whether you agree with municipal service cards or not, that this would be an item of local concern, and that is the basis upon which staff took the position they took at the hearing, as well as is making the recommendation here today. Do we have a motion on J?
Motion to approve staff recommendation in opposing SB 1017.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Second. All right, comments or questions by members of this council, or we just want to vote on it? Just vote. Okay. So we'll just do it under those circumstances.
I don't care.
Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
no.
So it's 2 no's, so that would be, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Do we have enough?
5-2.
5 to 2.
5 to 2.
Even
right,
with my poor math skills, that's enough. All right. So now we're on K, and Councilman Waring has some questions on K.
Well, I guess I just fundamentally didn't understand what it does. What problem is it saying it's going to fix, and why are they doing this?
Okay, so what is staff recommending on 1057? And as far as you understand, you could kind of give a short explanation of the bill, please.
Mayor, Councilman Waring, we have joining us today Jessica Breedlove from the prosecutor's office, who could get more into the technical legal nuance of this. John Wayne Gonzalez here will give a quick overview, and then Jessica could talk about some of the examples.
Mayor and council members, the question was, what is the staff recommendation? And staff recommendation would be to oppose. And not to belabor it, I would hand it off to Jessica, who's one of many staff people who have looked at this and provided feedback on the concerns.
All right, Ms. Breedlove, why should we oppose SB 1057?
Mayor Stanton, Councilman Waring, the reason why we recommended opposition to this particular bill was because what it's asking or what it's requiring of is essentially it would change all of the mental culpability states for all strict liability crimes in city ordinances and in state law to that being intentionally or knowingly. So essentially, any strict liability crime that doesn't fall under one of the exceptions listed in the bill would now be changed to intentionally or knowingly. To give you some examples, our graffiti ordinance 3910, it requires that a person, or prohibited conduct is a person can't have a particular graffiti implement, that being an aerosol spray can, a broad tip indelible marker, on private property without permission. And that is a strict liability offense. You don't have to knowingly do so. That would be now changed to an intentional standard for mental culpability for proof in court. Any of our regulatory...
Councilman Warren has a quick question about that. Councilman.
So right now, if you wander into someone's property with the graffiti tool, have them in your pocket, you didn't realize it, that's still bad. But if they change it, then the prosecutor would have to prove that you intentionally brought them in, I guess, with the intent to do some stuff. Is that a fair?
Correct. Essentially, there's two different Cs. There's C, essentially 2 and C3. C2 indicates that there's the intent to use it for that reason. C3 says if you're on private property, you must have permission to do so. And that is a strict liability offense. And so a lot of times in prosecutions of those types of cases, we may not have caught the person actually graffitiing, but they're still there with the spray paint can, and that's a way we proceed forward with prosecution on those cases.
And Mayor and Council Member, that's one of the examples, but there are other examples that are same, such as drunk and disorderly, barking dog ordinances, potential neighborhood preservation ordinances, curfew violations. This is just some of the lists that staff has been looking through, and we're sure there's others that would all of a sudden be difficult because individuals could say they did not know it was a violation of the code, and they would have a legal defense. And so this is just some of the list of that we're finding that this would impact.
So neighborhood preservation, how does that fit in with this?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and we may have someone here from neighborhood services, but there are some violations where there's issues where if you are in violation, that the standard that you didn't know that it was a violation to have, let's say, cars on blocks in your front, on your yard, or old equipment that's lying around, or trash, you didn't know that it was a violation, it would be much more difficult for us to prove that they know or didn't know. It's a violation, whether you knew it or not.
But okay, so neighborhood preservation. So we have folks who go out and address these issues all the time. Neighbor calls, council office calls, they go out and address this. So now they know. Isn't the whole point to get them to take the car off the blocks or take the stuff out of the front yard? So doesn't that solve that problem?
Mayor and council, I don't know if I can...
Not trying to arrest people for this, right?
Correct. Well, those would be citations and what have you to get conformity. I can say, Mayor and...
I mean, we're not trying to get convictions, so maybe that wasn't the best
Mayor
example.
and council, I can say that in the past, when something happened similar to the neighborhood preservation ordinance, what we learned at that time, it was a bill that basically did something similar just to the MPO statutes, which would have been a defense for us if someone said that I didn't know it was a violation, or they could claim that they didn't do it. It creates a much more difficulty to get people to comply if you don't have the ability to cite them and get them to change behavior. But that's just one example of other things we've found.
We'd be able to send them a letter, Mr. Mayor.
I mean, Jessica skipped this one, but we also have in city code child molestation, which you don't have to know. You can't have that defense, but it could impact that as well.
Let's just go to a simple one. So you shoot somebody. Theoretically, you could say, I didn't know that was bad, so you shouldn't arrest me? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'll let Ms. Breedlove handle that, but I believe that is covered in a different way.
Well, yeah, it would be covered by state statute, Councilman Waring. I think a simpler way to describe strict liability would be in regards to traffic violations. So just to explain strict liabilities, essentially, if you speed, your odometer could be broken. You don't have to know that you're speeding to get a ticket for speeding. And so in my example, if this were to change that strict liability standard to intentional, then you would have to be able to, I would have to prove that you intentionally sped And that's something that we normally would not have to prove. It's a strict liability statute. So in this particular bill, what it's saying is all of the ordinances that the city council has ever passed and that the city has ever written, that strict liability would now automatically be changed to intentional. And we would have to redraft those statutes to essentially indicate that we want them to be strict liability. Now, what we're finding is that there are also ones in state law that aren't covered, and I think probably would want to be covered by this bill as well. So those would need to be brought up to the bill sponsor as well as being a problem, that they're leaving out things that they would probably want to include, such as underage drinking and driving. Underage drinking and driving under ARS 244, that actually is a strict liability offense. If you're underage and you have alcohol in your system, then, and you're behind the wheel, then you're guilty. There's not a knowingly or intentional requirement for that. So that would actually end up being covered under that bill as well. So.
Okay, so I guess this is my problem with our whole process here, doing this. So have they had a hearing about this yet?
Mayor and council, they have not had a hearing on this bill yet.
So I assume Senator Kavanaugh was a police officer of some stripe back in New York, I believe. He also has access to lawyers and staffers and so forth, who it seems like would point out a lot of the things that you're saying, the omissions and so forth. So why would he be doing this? Okay, see, that's just it. We don't know. But there is some kind of reason, because otherwise he wouldn't be doing it. So, and I'm not just necessarily willing to say that there's no reason for him doing this. So we have no idea. This is why legislators should legislate, and we should do what we do. We're not going to be at the hearing. We're never going to know what the expert testimony is, probably one way or another, because I doubt any of us are actually going to watch this on camera. What I've been hearing here, not to put too fine a point on it, I'm not a lawyer. We only have one person who's here who's a lawyer, and the other one isn't on the phone, I don't believe. What I heard was a lot of words in English, but strung together. They didn't necessarily make as much sense as I might prefer, given that we're voting on this right now. So when is this going to be heard?
Mayor and council, it was pulled off an agenda last week. It has not been rescheduled yet. It could come back as early as next week. I understand that there may be an attempt by some people in the law enforcement community, prosecutors and what have you, to try to get a stakeholder meeting with the bill sponsor to discuss this.
Is it possible that has there been a motion? I apologize.
There, I believe, has not been a motion on this one at this.
Before we.
You are on this council, you may.
Thank you. So is it possible to maybe have you go ask what the point of this is and what the prospects are before we vote on it? Because I'm still a little not having basically we're only getting one side of the story. We're not getting Senator Kavanaugh's side of the story. We're not getting his staffer's side of the story. You're not a lawyer, I don't believe. And I'm sorry, the legal analysis wasn't as clear as I might otherwise prefer. Would that be an unreasonable? Given that it's not being heard, it's not on a calendar right now, right? And it's already been pulled off a calendar, which is never a promising sign if you're in the majority and you're in the legislature and your bill is getting pulled off a calendar.
Mayor and council, before we came in to the chambers, I looked and it had not been assigned yet. But that, as you know, that could change.
Okay, so the request is that we hold this item. The only concern, obviously, is that sometimes bills move quickly and mysteriously, even with stakeholder meetings. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes?
Can I make one amendment to what I said before? So we also vote to monitor, correct? So we could send them to monitor the stakeholder meeting, and then they could report back, and not take a position until we have more information.
In a perfect world, that makes sense. The only question, we're in the legislative world, and you know that sometimes bills get added at the last minute to agendas, et cetera. So I think the point is well taken. I think what happened is that, Senator Kavanaugh dropped a bill that has a lot of unintended consequences, and our professional prosecutor's office is pointing out many, many, many probably unintended consequences or not. But I don't want to judge Senator Kavanaugh's mental state or whether it was intentional that he did that or not like that. But at the same time, we have to stake out a position so that nobody else appreciated that, Ed. All right. Councilman Pastor. So my suggestion is we still take a position in light of what we know, and then we can come back and modify it if we learn additional information in the meantime, which is, in my opinion, in case the bill moves quickly. And Senator Kavanaugh is a very powerful senator. He could move the bill quickly if he decides to do so. Please.
So you referenced, used to be a state senator, so I kind of know how this goes. So what day, this is assigned to a committee, what day does that committee meet? I assume now next week before it could.
Mayor and council, assuming that it's not reassigned to another committee, which could happen, it would be Tuesday.
But you said they have a stakeholder meeting.
Mayor and council, or council member Waring, as I said, there are attempts by other entities that are trying to pull together a stakeholder meeting.
Frankly, for my purposes, I feel like we have inadequate information. Maybe it does some good thing that has heretofore not revealed itself by your explanation. Would anybody consider indulging me if I make a motion to just monitor it, to second that motion?
You may make such motion, please.
I don't want to get left hanging. I guess I'll just make it.
Sometimes you got to take risks.
I
You got to take a risk.
Monitor. I make a motion that we monitor this.
All right, there's a motion to monitor this particular bill. I will second that for purposes of professional courtey, so I do not want to leave Councilman Waring hanging, although someone could make a substitute motion as well, since that was the first motion.
Use, but sure.
All right, Councilman Pastor, do you have comments on the motion to continue, or do you have a substitute motion, or just comments generally?
I just have a question about the example. So if I'm speeding and I get pulled over and I get a ticket, I can say, I had no clue I was speeding. Or I didn't know what the speed limit was.
You could, so Mayor Stanton.
I'm going to that example that you used.
Mayor Stanton, Councilwoman Pastor, you could say that. As currently written, obviously that is a strict liability offense, so that wouldn't be a defense. If for some reason this new bill applied to that, if it did, in my example, applied to a traffic offense, then we would have to prove that you intentionally did it. And so you saying, my speedometer was broken, I wasn't looking, it wasn't my intention to speed, then obviously that would be much more difficult for us to prove.
Okay. So those could be the unintended consequences.
That is what we're talking about, is there are many offenses that are strict liability offenses throughout our ordinances and throughout state law that aren't exempted by the current bill. Therefore, because of that, we would have to then redraft all of those ordinances to make sure that we let everybody know that they are strict liability offenses as required by the bill.
And that would include potentially drunk driving, that would include potentially domestic violence, it would include neighborhood preservation ordinance violations, et cetera. Potentially, in light of the current language in the proposed statute.
That is possible. There are exemptions listed, so some of those that you mentioned would be exempted, but there are plenty that would not.
Okay, so the motion was to monitor the item. When is our next policy session?
February 9th.
So that leaves us hanging for a little while, and so
Only if it's on a calendar for next week. Well, when's the 9th?
2 weeks from today.
Oh, okay, sorry, 2 weeks.
So it could move depending on how the stakeholder meeting. So I seconded the motion to monitor for professional courtesy. If the motion stands, I'll be voting against my own second. But you got to vote.
And you're questioning someone else's mental state? No, I'm
All right.
kidding.
So
I'm kidding.
does anyone want to make a substitute motion, or we want to vote on the motion on the motion to monitor the bill? Does anybody want to change that on a second, or on a substitute, or should we vote on monitoring? All right, we're going to vote on monitoring. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
Nay.
All right, the nays have it. Is there a separate motion on?
Motion to approve staff recommendation in opposing SB 1057.
Can I speak to this too?
There's a motion and a second. Councilman Waring.
Very briefly, because I know people want to go. So I guess that's my problem, again, with this process. I don't feel like I have enough information to make an informed decision. This might be the worst bill ever. If I vote against this motion, it seems like I'm in favor of the bill, and that's not true. I'm simply opposing it, which I don't think is unreasonable given certain lack of information. So I just want to be clear. By voting no on this, I'm not saying I'm supporting this bill. I'm simply saying I don't think we should be opposing it at this time. Maybe we should at a different time.
So by voting no, Councilman Waring wants to be clear, he is not supporting drunk driving.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
it's clear.
that's just it. It gets to be,
Speeding.
or child molestation is
Child
another
molestation.
example. I mean, it's.
Your record is clear on drunk driving, Councilman. Okay, so with a motion to support staff recommendation, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, 6 to 1? 6 to 1. The motion passes. There be no business further business before the city council. This meeting is adjourned.